Once upon a time, there was a man who loved to work in the woods. He loved the forest. He knew all the plants. He could name all the animals. And he loved to cut giant trees. They called him the Woodcutter. One day he was out in the woods working near the tall grass when suddenly he heard a peculiar sound. Brrr, brrr, brrr. He walked into the grass deeper, and in it he saw a bamboo cage. And in that cage were two white birds. Oh, if I don't release these two birds, they'll die. So he opened up the cage and he released those two white birds. Brrr, pa, 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 pa. Brrr, pa, 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 pa. 5 years went by and the woodcutter left his job in the forest. He got married. And one day he was sitting talking to his wife about how much he missed the forest. And she encouraged him. She said, why don't you go back there and spend the day? I'll make you a lunch. Sounds like a good idea, he said. And so, he returned to the forest. It was wonderful to be back there. The smell fresh, the beautiful smell of pine. He walked some of the familiar paths. He walked deeper and deeper into the forest. It was so wonderful to be back there. He even walked to parts that he wasn't familiar with, parts that he had never been before. And it began to grow dark, and he realized, I need to get back. But wait a minute, how do I get out of here? He was lost. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll just make myself a bed of leaves, and I'll go to sleep in the forest tonight. And then when I wake up, it'll be light, and I can go home. So he started to gather some leaves, and he was about to lay down to go to sleep when suddenly he noticed a light off in the distance. He didn't remember anybody living in the forest, but maybe he could get something to eat or have a nice bed to sleep in. So he started to follow that light. He journeyed a short while and then came to a cottage. He knocked on the door. Oh, there was a woman who had opened the door. She had pale white skin and eyes that shone like fire. Can I help you? Yes. Do you have anything to eat? Maybe a place to sleep? Yes, she said. Come right in. She led him into the cottage. It was dimly lit. Over in the corner was a small table with lots of food on it. Oh, he was hungry. She led him over to the table and he sat down and he started to eat the food. Oh, it was delicious. He ate almost everything on the table and then looked to the lady to get some more to eat. When he realized she was no longer in the room. So he got up to look for her. Over in the corner was a great big red snake, and it had the head of that woman. I've been waiting for you. You remember 5 years ago when you released those birds? Those were mine. And now I'm going to swallow you. Psst. Wait a minute, said the woodcutter. I didn't know those were your birds. If I had known those were your birds, I wouldn't have released them. Well, it's too late now. What do you mean it's too late? In every story, there's a way out. Isn't there a way out in this story? Yes, yes, there's a way out, said the snake. Not far from here is a cave. And in that cave, there's a bell that hasn't been rung for 200 years. Find the cave, ring the bell 12 times before midnight, and you can go free. Oh, that's no problem, said the woodcutter. I know these woods. I'll just go right out and find that cave and ring the bell. Ah, there's one thing, said the snake. You can't leave the cottage. Well, wait a minute. If I can't leave the cottage, how am I going to go find the cave and ring the bell? That's your problem, said the snake as it crawled back into the corner and wrapped itself up 3 times. Oh, I know what I'll do, said the woodcutter. I'll think the bell to ring. I'll think real hard. I'll think real hard, and that bell will ring. He thought and thought and thought, and nothing happened. And finally, he realized nothing was going to happen. No, he surrendered to the thought that nothing that he could do could make that bell ring. When suddenly, he heard the soft ringing of a bell. Bong, 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 bong. 12 times the bell rang. And the snake disappeared. The cottage disappeared. And the woodcutter found himself in the middle of the woods all alone. Why, what made that bell ring? Oh, I remember. Snake said there was a cave not too far from here. And there was a bell. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, he didn't have to go far before he came to a great big hill where there was a cave. And he walked in. It was a high ceiling. And sure enough, at the top of the ceiling, there was a bell. Looked like it hadn't been rung for 200 years. There were feathers stuck to the bell. And then when he looked down to his feet, he saw 2 white birds. They were all bloody. They had banged themselves against the bell to save the woodcutter, who had once saved them. They were alive. He took off his shirt. He wrapped them up. He took them home. He nourished them back to health. And you know, one day, he released them. And you know, that woodcutter lived for many years with his family, happily ever after.